Podcast. I am your host, Kevin.
And I am your other host, Kane.
Today's podcast was recorded on 7/29/2018.
Right at the crack of 10 p.m.
So, Kane, unfortunately, has not have been feeling very well at all this evening, so
It's going to be a more casual, more chill episode. I hope you're okay with that.
So,
What are we talking about today?
well, I'm going to take your advice, and we are going to be talking about paranormal tech.
That's right, folks. Welcome to the return of our most popular subject so far, Ghosts 101. This is course number 2, I guess you could say. And today, we're doing a more in-depth review of all the equipment available to you as a paranormal investigator. We're going to start with a cheap and easy to access, and we'll go into the more serious tech.
Okay, so as I said back in Ghosts 101, I'm going to be teaching you all wonderful people on how to go out and collect evidence yourself. One of the most important aspects, other than being part of the golden rules that we said in the last podcast, is the technology that is around you. Now, some of the people that are freshly new into this hobby or wanting to provide significant amount of evidence to support this type of field, we are going to start out with the basic nonchalant start.
How to start your first investigation in $30 or less.
Well, that's going to be very impossible regardless. $30 is not going to get you through the door. Unless you plan to use like your own cell phone, which is pretty decent. I mean, 5 years, 6 years back, the best EVP that I've ever gotten was off my cell phone. It wasn't off of a digital voice recorder or a tape recorder. But first of all, what you're going to have to start doing is starting to look around you. What is your resources going to provide for you? I recommend probably, if you are just starting out, I recommend going to a pawn shop or going to Walmart or Target or something. First off, get you a decent, mediocre, anywhere from a mediocre to a decent digital voice recorder. We call these babies DVRs for a reason. For digital voice recording, you want solid evidence to pick up EVPs. This is going to be your first go around. Don't worry about cameras at this point, because at this point most of the cameras that are out and available now are nothing but digital, and they're about $200, $300 on up.
Well, that depends. You could get some really cheap cameras.
But the problem is with the megapixels that's going to be offered with the camera, if they're not going to take really decent pictures, you might as well just, most digital cameras now can either take photos or video.
But it's all the really low-quality videos and photos that you see the aliens in.
No, but regardless. What I recommend is, if you can find one that is cheap, a Sony analog Hi8 camcorder. I have 3 of those bad boys still in my paranormal bag. I have a charger, for it, spare batteries. You can still get the tapes for it, believe it or not. And they are fairly cheap to replace just in case if one breaks down. Now, the reason why I specifically say the Sony version of the Hi8, choose the one that comes with infrared in it, because by George, you're going to pick up every single moisture droplet to dust particle to actual paranormal orb on these babies.
Yeah. Generally, infrared cameras are generally on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of cost compared to what you could get your hands on for paranormal evidence. Don't get me wrong, a good IR camera can be a little pricey, but there are some things out there that are way better at picking up evidence, but they can cost you several hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And we'll get to there in a little bit. We still got thermal cameras and UV cameras now.
Yeah,
to
no,
go through.
those are the high-end ones. And
Yeah,
those
we'll
are,
get to those later, folks. We're starting out on the cheap end. So we covered basic.
Do they even make regular 35 millimeter film
to
to take pictures with?
nowadays?
Yeah.
I
Like
haven't seen
disposable
any.
cameras?
You're not going to pick it up at Walmart, I think.
Well, I got someone who's watching the podcast live as we are recording, and she is shaking her head. Yes, you can still get the 35 millimeter.
I'm sure you could get it somewhere. Somebody probably still makes it.
I recommend getting those for photographic evidence. The downfall is with those is, yeah, you can only spend $5, $10, $15, $20 on the camera, but you got to get that film exposure and get the prints off of it. And that will range anywhere from, I don't know, $12 to $30. Depends on how much film you go in.
Another downfall of analog film is you get the sorry, I'm eating a sandwich right now, and like I said, I don't feel good, so eat my ass.
Kane.
You've dropped the F-bomb so many times, we might as well.
But I was doing so well this time around.
We are only
Only
7 minutes
7
in.
minutes
It was gonna
in.
happen eventually. We both know that.
But anyways, so
But yeah. Anyways, where was I?
you were putting down analog film.
Oh yeah. Analog film. Part of the problem with that is you run into issues such as double exposure.
Not necessarily.
Not always.
Not with the extra print, but it can happen.
Yes. There are pros and cons to both analog and digital. For whatever reason, more seems to show up in analog films, but you also can have more that can go wrong. Not only in double exposure, but just in mechanics. Analog film and their cameras have more moving parts. They got more stuff you got to worry about. More things that could potentially break down. Digital is a little more, for lack of a better term, idiot-proof. You can really, you can just point and click, and that's where it goes.
But back when I was learning all of my stuff from Dr. Father David Oster, may he rest in peace. Believe it or not, he was actually against digital for a little while.
And why's that?
The technology wasn't high enough.
Yeah, digital.
I mean, digital has came a long ways since the 2000s.
Yeah.
But digital is pretty much all you can really get. And anymore, most of those high-end cameras that you were talking about are digital.
Yeah.
They're not, there's no film that's required of it, just a good SD card. And that's another thing, ladies and gentlemen, when you're looking at all of these digital items, check to see if there's an SD card required for it, because you don't want to buy it.
There usually is. Most oftentimes with high-end cameras, you will need an SD card, and get a thick one. Get one that has a lot of memory to it, because that memory runs out surprisingly quickly.
The one, what is it? The one,
the
1 gig.
Yeah, 1 gig isn't even usable.
It's not even usable. We always had to go with our 16.
Yeah, at least 16 gigs, and bring 2 or 3 of those for just a few hours.
Because with the camera, we got a decent.
It's an okay camera. Do we
digital
have it
camera.
around?
Yeah, it's in the desk.
Oh.
But with the SD card that we have to go with it, it only records at 27 intervals.
27 seconds.
No, 27 minutes. But it keeps going down the more there's more stuff on the card.
So you're only going to get a couple, maybe an hour or two of video. You can get a lot of pictures with that. But video takes up a lot more memory than you think it does.
Oh, yeah. Well, most definitely. It quickly adds up, too. So keep that in mind.
If you're getting a decent, high-quality camera, invest heavily in that memory.
Yeah. So what you're also going to be needing is a good recording program to get that information off your DVR onto your computer so you can go through.
With digital DVRs, that's a lot easier because you can just take the SD card and plug it in. But with an analog DVR, you're definitely going to have to find some way of getting it onto a computer, which can be difficult if you don't have the right.
Not really. All you
pieces.
really got to do for this, ladies and gentlemen, is get a mail-to-mail, yeah, kind of like a headphone set.
Yeah, auxiliary.
An auxiliary, yeah, mail-to-mail. Plug one mail into the speaker and one in the microphone. But the problem is, I mean, you can go through Audacity to get decent recordings, or you can spend the $50 a month on, Adobe. I used to run my stuff with Adobe, and I could pick out EVPs like none other. What was it? 4 years ago, me and a trainee were up at the cemetery, and we got a 15-minute long EVP.
15-minute, like. How does an EVP last 15 minutes? Was this like a conversation?
It was a conversation, and
between like two spirits?
2 or 3 spirits.
Really?
And there was a male and there was a female. And the male was threatening to shoot that SOB blankety blanky in the head with the gun. And then the female spirit was like, no, don't do it. You can't do this. And
so, like a residual. Huh?
Yeah, no, it was intelligent because they... Yeah.
Well, they were interacting with each other, but...
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds residual.
They saw one of us and wanted to shoot one of us in the head because of it. Don't confuse residual with actual...
In that case, that just sounds like 2 people who are denying that they are, in fact, dead. Which can happen.
Man, it can happen.
We'll get, oftentimes, EVPs from spirits that don't actually believe or think that they're dead.
Some of the best EVPs that I've gotten was out of the territorial prison down in Laramie.
Right.
I've gotten, like...
Yeah, in the territorial prison, that's a notoriously haunted location. They get poltergeist activity all the time, and I myself have seen, like a bright green apparition.
Well, they got, back then, they sentenced these criminals who just did petty things for 3 life sentences, and here they are. They're there.
They're still serving out those sentences. They don't realize they can just go.
Yeah.
Speaking of residual versus intelligent, did we ever go over that difference? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we were kind of like going to break up these course lessons to...
I'll let you go over that since we mentioned it. We might as well explain.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. You have intelligent and you have residual. The residual is what you see in movies and what people like to talk about, and they confuse it with real hauntings. It's basically where the environment has just picked up the emotion, the psychic kinetic energy, and it just absorbs it.
The environment basically recorded an event, and for whatever reason, it replays that event, infinitely.
Now, don't confuse it with an intelligent haunt. An intelligent haunt is going to be about 99% of all the time that you're going to be interacting with them.
True residual haunts are rare.
I mean, if you're going to be going out in an old insane asylum, you're going to have to be very cautious because those ghosts have intelligence. They know what they're doing. They know that's around them, and they see you.
Yeah, most intelligent haunts are just how do I explain this? They're haunts that you can communicate with, that understand what's going on. There's actually physically a conscious being there to interact with.
Yes. It's like most of my cases that I have done here in the state of Wyoming have been intelligent.
Right.
Like Samantha. We talked off and on about Samantha on the previous podcast. She's an intelligent hauntee. She has her own intelligence. She opens doors. She communicates with us sometimes. And she just, she lets us know that she's here. She's part of the family. That's basically all what it is. But she's intelligent. She's not residual. And most intelligent entities will follow you home, but not from any graveyards or any battlefields. They'll follow you from Walmart or church or the post office.
Anywhere you find them.
Anywhere. I mean, if human beings go there, and they did in life, they're gonna be there in their afterlife. That's just all there is to it.
Now, I mean, I've seen the people of Walmart, but imagine the ghosts of Walmart. That sounds like a good comedy in the making.
Uh, so, but yeah,
Well, we've divulged far enough, I think. So we have DVRs, we got your basic cameras, a piece of tech that we don't see very often, but I personally suggest you pick up, which is fairly cheap, is they make portable carbon monoxide testers, right?
yes,
And how much would you say one of those are?
about $20.
20, $30. I actually suggest one of these because when conducting an investigation, you need to rule out all non-paranormal possibilities first. Excuse me. The effects of carbon monoxide, it's a colorless, odorless gas, right?
Yes.
Very dangerous. First of all, I suggest it because if you're going to go to all these, like, old, decrepit, rotting buildings, you want to watch out for that anyways. Because it is a toxic gas. But if you inhale it, you can actually begin to hallucinate. You can start to see figures, you can start to hear sounds. And if you detect high levels of carbon monoxide, that's going to basically wipe out any personal experience you have.
Okay, in the movie Ghostbusters, where Bill Murray was around Dana Barrett's, Sigourney Weaver's apartment, and he was squeezing that little bulb with that little wand,
Yeah.
and he was actually taking a measure, that is actually used in some paranormal studies. It's called a sniffer. It was actually made for people for utility companies to come over to see if any source of trace of natural gas or any type of
Right.
anything, like anything that will produce some type of smell. Well, some paranormal researchers think that, because, sometimes you get a smell or something, you can usually have that indicate and record the numerical.
Basically just figure out what kind of gases are present.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people talk about, I smelled grandma's perfume in the hallway today, but she's been dead for 20 years. Well, that can point to evidence if you can't find any other explanation, but oftentimes a paranormal encounter just turns out to be a gas leak gone horribly awry.
Well, and that happens a lot around with me.
Oh, good Lord.
So let's get back to tech more. You'll need to get yourself a good EMF meter. Don't get an ELF meter. Those things are way cheap and they don't really work. You might as well just use a compass. And I think we talked about the compass before.
Right. For those of you who didn't listen to the first episode, EMF is just a natural electric field that is produced by most energized objects. So we're talking about wiring. We're just talking about natural polarized metal.
Yeah, anything that has electrical or magnetic fields, it will produce.
It will produce this EMF that is detectable. EMF is believed to be produced by ghosts. However, we also know that high levels of EMF can also cause you to hallucinate.
Yes.
It can cause you to feel queasy or uneasy.
Yeah, so be careful with those EMF pumps that you see online. Always know exactly what you're getting before you purchase it for any of your investigations.
So, EMF meters not only help you detect ghosts if the readings are unusually spiking in a normally dead environment, but if an environment is producing consistently high EMF, then that can explain why people aren't feeling good. Like, I walk into this room and I feel like I must leave because it's producing a lot of EMF.
So, I recommend getting the K2s. You can find K2s a lot anywhere on the internet. You can get a tri-field meter, but the problem is with the tri-field meter is you have to stand still for that in order for it to measure anything.
Right.
With a K2, you can actually walk around and be able to directionalize on where the phenomenon is causing the EMF. Disturbances. You can usually determine on what that is. Next piece of equipment, get a thermometer, folks. A decent one. Just spend $20-$60. Get you a thermometer.
Oh, that's a bit of a range there. $20 is like, oh wow, I can pick that up to right now to $60. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna need to dedicate some cash to this.
Thermometers will help you determine cold spots.
the theory is cold spots
or even hot spots.
or hot spots are an indication of a paranormal presence. It's just chemical reactions that I guess the ectoplasm is producing. Is that the theory?
Kind of, sort of. They drain the EMF and it drops the air that then I'm not really sure, the electrical ions or whatever. They something to do with that gets fluctuated. It's been a long time. But anyways, when a ghost uses any type of energy, it drains the local EMF and it drops the temperature or raises the temperature. Well, with a thermometer, you can usually pinpoint and determine if there is indeed a fluctuation of room temperature versus 20, 30 degrees below or higher than what is normal.
Yeah. It can also help you determine what spots are naturally cold, too. Because sometimes you'll walk around and go, I feel a cold spot right now. Well, guess what, bud? That spot's always cold. It's just breezy.
Another piece of equipment I recommend is get you a decent ghost box.
Okay, now we're starting to get into the range of you're not going to buy this anywhere. You just can't get it in a
Check
store.
on eBay. Normally, they range anywhere from 50 to 300.
Yeah, definitely. The Ghost Tech is one of those things where the more money you invest into it, the more you're going to get out of it.
Not necessarily.
Well, not always, but it's a general rule of thumb.
Because it's like, when I got my original ghost box, my little white radio hack shack, I only spent like $30 on it, and I hacked it myself.
Yeah.
But my new one that I got was $80, and it was hacked by someone else.
For those of you who are completely uninitiated, a ghost box is just a typical AM/FM radio that's been hacked to where it doesn't mute when it goes through the stations, and then you can hold a button down to scroll through the stations really quickly.
See, I don't know how much our third episode was actually audible, but
now none of it is.
So we did kind of talked about it on the ITC. It is an ITC device, but there are better things that are coming out that are able to do that. Ghost box apps don't use them.
There's no reason why they would work.
In order for a cell phone to pick up any type of FM frequencies, is you got to have earbuds in it, and that's not.
I mean, that doesn't sound true. Earbuds are just an audio.
You can get real radio stations off a cell phone, but you got to have earbuds for the antenna. You have to be able to. I mean, there's programs out there that you can listen to live radio. However, I recommend just get a digital AM/FM radio and see if it's even hackable, because don't even waste your time on those.
How do they see if it's hackable?
There's usually a list. You can type in hackable ghost boxes. Frank, the guy who invented the ghost box, he passed away. And he was the one that led the charge of ITC devices to begin with, if I remember correctly.
I think Spiritcom came way before.
Spiritcom is in its league of its own.
Yeah, Spiritcom, we'll cover at the end of this episode.
And I did find a way we can build one cheaply.
Cheaply?
Cheaply.
Yeah, Spiritcom is one of those devices that you can get it for $40 to $50, or you can spend up to $3,000 on it.
Well, it depends on what type of transmitter and receiver that you're
and
wanting.
generally the quality and oomph of the instruments.
Well, you can usually do any type of transceiver or receiver. You can't do a transceiver because you can't broadcast. But I've been reading that manual that Dr. George Meek had written down with his colleagues, and I think I finally found a way to do it. Okay. It's cheaply.
George Meek, for those of you who never catched our third episode, is the guy who invented the Spiritcom, a device that produces its own. It produces a series of tones that cover around the human voice, the human male voice, and it broadcasts these tones to a receiver that's right next to it. And the theory is the spirits can manipulate these tones to produce voice fairly easily. But let's get back to the cheap stuff. Let's get back to.
And batteries. You can't get enough batteries.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Double stock on those things.
Double A's, triple A's, just get. If you're gonna go ghost hunting and you're gonna be serious and consistent about it, you're gonna need so many batteries. You have no idea.
You know, just use common sense. Get a decent flashlight. If you're going to be going into public area, call your local law enforcement. Let them know that you're going to be there. Because the last thing that you need is, like,
The cops showing up.
the cops showing up and saying, "Oh, Kevin, you're here again. How come you didn't call us down at the shop?" No, sorry, I forgot. That happened a time or two.
Yeah, we forgot to mention get a flashlight, especially if you're gonna be stomping
Yeah.
around at night. The first and most important thing above collecting evidence is your own safety. Make sure you can see. Get
Yeah.
a flashlight, maybe get a headlamp.
If the environment is not safe, don't go in. We already kind of had this chit chat before. You know, if there's broken glass, make sure you know,
If there's asbestos, hold your breath.
just use common sense, people. There is no need, because unfortunately there have been a few ghost hunters out there that have passed away because they didn't use common sense. And well, I guess they're finding out what the afterlife is all about.
Firsthand. Got
I
what they wanted,
personally,
didn't they?
I personally want to wait, 40, 50 more years, but that's like.
I'll
knock
hold
on
you to
wood.
that one then.
That's knock on wood. I mean, I have no control of it. When it's time, it's time. So, but yeah,
A face respirator or even face masks, those can be pretty cheap, and you'll want to bring those in, especially older buildings where there's a bunch of dust and asbestos. Asbestos is a nasty thing.
there are caves that can contain guano or some form of.
Right. You can. We were doing an investigation at this abandoned homestead, and we found this this garage kind of building that it had a lot of bats in there. I mean, it reeked of guano.
Yeah, it wasn't very pleasant, and there was no way that I would allow any of us to go in there to take a look into the building.
And plus, just you don't want to play with bats.
No.
I mean,
They could contain-
flying rabies.
They can, and amongst other things.
Yeah, other nasty
Rabies
diseases.
is just one of the lesser of the.
Rabies is just a nasty one.
But yeah, just common sense, ladies and gentlemen. That's the only thing I can really say about the equipment. Do your research on it. Just don't buy out of a whim. Mostly, if you can find kits at a legitimate ghost hunting site, look into that before.
Yeah,
But
those
some-
are usually pretty good deals, and those will oftentimes piece of food stuck in the back of my throat. If you can find a kit, usually they'll be a lot cheaper than buying all the components separately, and if the source is reputable, then it should actually be equipment that's known to be especially good at picking up evidence.
And if you do dump some money on a piece of equipment, make sure you get that thing under warranty or extended warranty.
If that's even an option. Sometimes when buying online, it's just take it or leave it.
But let's say if you pick up a camera at Walmart, get the extended warranty on it. The Walmart has to offer photocopy your receipt so you can have it, because just in case if something goes boo and you don't know what to do and you drop your camera.
You wouldn't believe how many people just drop their camera and just leave
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Like when you're in that fight or flight situation, the equipment you have on you it's just gone.
Yeah.
Get if you can, get like a carabiner and like attach all your equipment to your belt.
Another aspect, this is going to be my last tip.
Oh.
So, get a security system going, like one of those digital security cameras.
Yeah, that's
Get a system, and you can dump quite a bit of money on it, but if you get the right one, I highly recommend it. Have the eyes in the back of your head cut type thing,
Yeah, have a guy or two people really should be sitting in this kind of brain center. He is currently getting up to use the bathroom because he is unprofessional and couldn't take care of it before the podcast started. So I guess we're gonna hang out for a little bit. How does that sound? So I'm gonna steal his chair. It's a lot comfier than mine. With this nerve center, generally what you want to do is you just want to set up a camera in a lot of the bigger rooms. If a room is tiny, then it doesn't really matter. If you're going to hang out in a really large complex, let's say you somehow managed to get into an insane asylum. First of all, lucky you. Check that out. You just get it in like the cafeteria in this instance, like the main halls. Point it down hallways. If you can't cover every room, don't worry about it. Just get the larger sections. If you're gonna get IR cameras, put it into this system first, because that's definitely gonna be your best friend. In terms of non-paranormal equipment, get some walkie-talkies too. Have people monitoring the cameras, and then they can tell you if something's moving behind you, and then they can just radio in. And plus, this is just a safety thing. If you manage to fall, these people can see that you fell on your butt, and they can radio somebody to go save you, essentially. So, even if you don't think it's good for collecting evidence, it can still pay dividends if you have that larger crew and you have that kind of money for a security system like this, especially if you can, like I said, get the IR on it. He's still in the bathroom. It usually takes a while. So, I don't know what he planned on talking about next. So you got the walkie-talkies, you got the nerve center. Let's talk about some of the more fancy cameras you can get your hands on. Nessa, you're still here. Hello. You can say hi if you want.
Hi.
Okay, I think that picked up. Would you have any sort of clue how much a thermal camera would cost?
A decent one is around probably $1,500.
Yeah, definitely over 1,000. Some of the best video evidence you can collect will be off of a thermal camera. For those who have never seen a thermal camera, instead of detecting just normal light, it picks up infrared light that is generated by heat and allows you to see cold spots or hot spots. People will show up as a bright white. And generally speaking, the theory is if a spirit happens to walk into frame, you will be able to see either a cold spot or a hot spot moving. It might just be a blob or it might be shaped like a person. You never know. But if you can get a thermal camera and you can take care of it, it will treat you well in most investigations. A bit more experimental, you can also get an ultraviolet camera now, which will show ultraviolet light as kind of this purplish color. And this has gotten some really interesting evidence from what we've seen, though these can be even more expensive. You can get cameras that view both normal light, infrared, IR, not thermal, and UV light at the same time, and then you can mesh them together. And you can get some absolutely stunning pictures with this. That's kind of how the Hubble Deep Space picked up all those galaxies. If you ever seen those pictures of space where all the galaxies are just so close together and all bright as day, that's how the Hubble picked those up. And there are handheld cameras now that can do the same thing. Yeah, it's really incredible. The evidence you will get on these cameras that can do all three at once will, it'll be shocking. It'll be excellent. But these kind of cameras that can see all of these fields, these are going to set you back thousands of dollars easily. Possibly over $10,000 for a really good one. But that will take care of you. That you will get the best evidence on the block. If you really want for EVP collection, you can actually attach microphones to these cameras. Instead of just relying on the camera's natural audio, you can attach external microphones, which are often directional, so you'd need to happen to be pointing the microphone at an EVP source to pick one up. But these can help with audio clarity. Part of the problem with collecting EVPs is you'll either have some kind of background noise, or it'll just be a generally low quality piece of equipment, and you'll hear this buzzing like this just in the background. And that's not fun to listen to. A, if you try to do several hours of evidence collection, that buzz is going to drive you nuts. And B, that degradation in quality is either going to mask some EVPs or throw out some other EVPs, because that could be anything, you know? So, getting these external microphones on these cameras will definitely help you in the long run. I can't believe I'm still talking. Good Lord, he's taking forever. I could just start making fun of him. Maybe, I'll go up to the door. I'll just bang on it once, really loud, just pop. And, I just leave it at that. Occasionally, while he's taking forever, I'll start scratching at the door, just, like that. And that freaks him out, usually. Of course, he knows it's me, but he never expects it. Oh, I hear him. He's coming back. Wow. He's stumbling. He's taking his sweet time, that's for sure. Hello. He has returned. I talked about thermal and UV cameras and external mics for these cameras. I get to keep the comfy chair.
I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. When you get as old as I am and Mother Nature's screaming, you listen. That's all I'm going to say. All right, well,
So I talked about the expensive cameras. What else could we do?
I think that's about it.
I feel like there should be more.
Charlie says it's it.
Charlie is our little dog, and he is the sweetest thing ever.
He's a Chihuahua Jack Russell mix.
He's got Corgi in there. I know that.
Yeah. We also have another dog. Her name is Lucy, and she's a Transylvanian hound.
It kind of looks like a wiener dog, except more normally proportioned, like an actual dog should look.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are now pushing up to the.
I think we can get more out of this.
Like what? I'm out of ideas.
Well, we already talked about Spiricom. We've talked about the big fancy cameras. You mentioned EMF pumps earlier. What is an EMF pump and how does it work?
Okay, an EMF pump is basically a pump. It just pumps out EMF. It's to increase the EMF amount that is readily available in the area. I really don't know if they work very well or anything, but because a ghost is going to have enough energy to do whatever the hell it wants to do to begin with.
Well, I mean, in order to cause action, it would need to absorb energy. It couldn't just make something move without enough, it has to put energy into something to get energy out of something, i.e. something flying across the room, and the EMF pump supposedly fuels the ghost to allow you to pick up more clear evidence.
Well, let's just say at a devil's advocate here, let's just talk about ghosts in general. And, you always talk about, or you always hear about, ghosts smoking cigarettes and you hear smell of alcohol and, perfume and sometimes some type of whiff of strange foods. So here's a question. Do ghosts mainly have access to that type of stuff on the other side? Or is that just residual?
Both could be legitimate answers. Like, in some cases it'd be residual, in others they could actually have access to that. I'm not sure. We don't know what you have access to in the afterlife.
But, you always hear these ghost stories about, I smelled cigars when I was walking down to the office.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier when we were having the carbon monoxide discussion.
But, just what if ghosts don't truly need EMF to perform functions? Maybe they already have the energy based off of...
Based off of what? Hey, you gotta...
Blueberry charms or something. Blueberry pie. Ghost food.
This is possibly the worst theory you've ever put forward.
Well, it's true. I mean, we consume food for calories to put into energy. What if the ghosts do the same thing? What if they don't need some type of strange EMF or electrical magnetic field to do whatever they need to do? What if the other side is, because you hear like stories of in the Bible and other type of holy books where they would throw feasts and stuff like this. It's just an idea. Just just
going
what
all
if.
Papa Butch on us all now.
No.
When we were performing investigations out of town, we were hanging with this guy's father-in-law named Butch. We call him Papa Butch. And he would want to come along in all of our investigations, and he would get biblical with it every time. Every time we did something, he would bring something up from the Bible.
He is a very spiritual person, and
very religious.
And there is nothing wrong with that. And Dad, if you're listening, hi.
Hi, Dad.
But he is a very spiritual person, which is okay. I mean, at least he has a belief system. And where I've seen where people don't have a belief system in anything, they don't believe in anything, which is really, really sad and really depressing because some people just believe that there is absolutely nothing there when you die. And
I mean, isn't that in itself a belief system?
it is a belief system, but it's not like they don't have faith in it. Faith is a very strong, powerful, divine thing that moves things forward. I mean, with today's date, science can't explain everything. It can't. So I'm just saying that if people have a spiritual belief system, that's okay.
Well, that was your daily sermon, folks. Come back next week. There will be a little donations bowl being passed around. If you could spare $5, that would be excellent.
We used to have a donate thing on our YouTube, but YouTube took it down.
Yeah, but that just gave us money for us to spend.
Even Dr. George Meek was going to try to prove that the burning bush indeed happened and was scientifically plausible because fire is an amplifier. He had this thesis on it and written down on it, but unfortunately he passed before even conducting.
I mean, looking at what age and what health condition he was in, it really seemed like he was expecting to never die. Just because he was taking on so much when he died.
Well, he was adamant to prove that there was an afterlife after when his wife passed away. I mean, honestly, I think when I pass away, my wife is going to go completely cuckoos for Cuckoo Puffs. She's going to be more mentally disabled than anything else.
I don't think mentally disabled is the right term you should be using here.
Well, and she's going to go completely nuts.
Alright. So, here's an interesting question I thought of.
Okay.
We're talking about the most fantastical ghost tech of all time. Would the technology presented in the movie Ghostbusters, which, as we've stated before, is actually surprisingly accurate film when it comes to the field of paranormal research until, the ghost busting happens.
Okay, so what are you talking about? Trapping a ghost indefinitely?
The traps, the proton packs, the PKE meters, all that jazz. Would it one day be feasible? Given enough money and given enough crazy people.
All right, here's the thing. Proton packs can't happen. Protons don't work that way. I'm sorry to say, protons don't act as you're gonna bake someone with protons.
I mean, if you play the Ghostbusters video game that came out in 2008, you will find that shooting the proton pack at a wall will in fact char it and light little tiny fires.
However, can a person trap a ghost indefinitely? There is a theory on this idea. Okay, so the PKE meters is basically your EMF meter.
Except more flashing.
It's more flashy and has more toys to it. But being able to trap a ghost is almost plausible. I mean, there's a theory that if you can regulate and demagnetize an electrical field,
Well, that would just eliminate that would just
it'll
despawn the ghost until the magnetic field can restart.
if you can get like high powered magnets, but this is just a theory, ladies and gentlemen.
This is his theory, mind you.
There is no scientific evidence backing this up at all.
Yeah, this is just something he came up with on like a road trip.
But if you can be able to neutralize the magnetic field, that will reduce any type of form of haunting, period.
So basically, you just stick like a little box in your room, like an anti-magnet almost.
Yeah.
And this should eliminate all paranormal happenings
But
within the area if you want to haunt your house.
But the problem is that, everything has a magnetic field. Like your heart has one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You're
basically saying you're not going to get an anti-magnet.
No. There is no form of real removal at this point. Whether it be...
Can you foresee some kind of removal in the future?
No.
No?
No. There is not enough scientific data in this field. And there's a lot of people out in the field today that are making a mockery on what we do. So no one's really going to sit down and say, I want you to design a proton pack.
Proton pack.
Proton.
The proton. The nucleus of the atom.
I was actually mentioned by Dan Aykroyd one time.
Yeah, he replied to a comment of yours on Twitter, didn't he?
Yeah. But,
that's the closest we've ever gotten to fame.
But the thing is that there is no amount of spiritual power. There is not enough human power to move or remove a spirit from...
You say spiritual power. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Okay. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that I was trained by a father, a Catholic priest in the Catholic sainthood. No matter of holy water, name of Jesus, or the Virgin Mary will remove a spirit from your home. You might as well just be saying, Cain, I know what Cain does. I know what Cain do. I know what he likes, and this is how he acts. It's more insulting than anything else. You're just basically throwing insults to it. Yeah, it may remove it at that point in time, but next full moon or new moon, yeah, well, your class level has increased, and now you got a raging class 4 or 5 on you, and then you're going to have to get a trained professional. Notice I said trained professional to come up and clean up the mess. You don't go...
We were often that professional.
I've seen so many groups out there that don't have the technical know-how. They don't know. They've seen a few episodes of
Ghost Trackers trademark.
Yeah. And then they go off and say, we can do this, Jenny, we can do this.
Let's just go to this abandoned location and just start screaming at the air.
I mean, with me, it took me 2.5 years just to get my first diploma out of...
Well, that's most diplomas.
Yeah. I mean, I worked long, I worked hard, and I had to study multiple religions. I had to go into depth of, extents of the Bible. I had to go in extents of, Tibetan Book of the Dead, mainly.
That's an interesting one.
Yes, it is. It's, there is so much danger in this. I mean, it has taken its toll on me physically, mentally, and even spiritually on all levels. before you get into this, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to have to sit down and really think, do you have the physical prowess? Do you have the mental stability to do this? Because I've known people that as soon as they see a ghost, they're gone. They're out of there. They're like, I ain't talking to you. I ain't gonna see you.
I ain't having that shit.
And they ain't gonna deal with what they saw. And that happened a lot. And I mean a lot. I lost so many people out of my team because they finally seen something and that was it. They're gone. It's done. They followed the entity even followed them home and messed with them even more. Which is really sad because some of those people were really good people. And I still view them as some of my good friends. But bad things do happen, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are not prepared for this, then you have no business getting into it. If I recommend you enrolling through IGHS, the school is still open. You can still, it's still a hefty enrollment fee, but you get the training from the best of the industry. You get practically hand-fed, hand-over easy on a silver platter. You get everything handed to you on a PDF file. Now, when I did it, I actually had like 3 books and a course material shipped to me, but everything else now is on a PDF file. IGHS is not a sponsor of us, but I recommend you to go get that education. Just don't go in and think just because you've seen The Curse of Chucky or Friday the 13th or
Wow, those are classic ghost hunting movies.
or whatever, just because you are into the paranormal, just because you've seen the movie Annabelle, doesn't mean that you know exactly what's going on. This is very sensitive. This is very, I want you people to be trained right. That's why I'm giving these lectures here on Ghost 101, so you guys can understand what is a ghost, how to handle a ghost, how do you handle something that's not other than a ghost, and it's
Other than a ghost.
yeah, we're talking anything from a lich, wraith, shadow person to other.
Wow. That's a pretty broad spectrum you laid down there.
Banshee, those things are real.
Have you ever ran into a banshee?
I heard a banshee before.
Yeah. How are you sure this just wasn't a person screaming?
Well, if it was, the person was really good at it.
You got to be careful. You always got to assume it's the least interesting answer first.
There is danger in this, ladies and gentlemen, and if you're not willing to cope with it and willing to dedicate yourself to this, don't do it. I mean, I remember, the group that I was helping out with, the lead, she experienced health problems, and there's someone outside, so if you hear barking dogs,
I can go let him out.
no, because it's almost 11. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make this quick. Know exactly what you're getting into. Read the books. Get enlisted in through IGHS. No, they are not a sponsor again, but I want you to get that education. Get that education so you can determine correctly on how to respond to what is really going on out there.
So there's one more thing we need to cover before we wrap today's episode up, and this is going to be the most interesting one, I think. This is going to be the most fun. You see, as I've stated earlier, the state of paranormal investigations as a science is well into its Wild West days. We don't know what's going on, we don't know what's happening, and so you might get the spark of an idea. How do you build your own custom equipment, and why would you feel you'd need to do that?
Okay, to build your custom equipment, you're going to have to take electronics. You're going to have to understand capacitors, diodes, and everything else. You're going to have to... my best advice to learn that is find a ham operator. Learn from them on how to build electronics, because as they get more into their type of hobby, if you will, they have to learn how to build electronics and solder and all this. Go to your local college, sign up for an early electronics class if you have them. Study into what type of device you are going to be needing and go from there. I mean, there are some brilliant people out there. There's some good, wholesome people out there. Try to find a good group out there that is not out there for fame. It's not out there for financial gain. Just a good, wholesome group. And learn from them and just educate yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Educate. Education is the key word. Because the last thing that we need is someone to open up the ninth plane of hell.
I mean, hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened yet, but
You never know. You never know. So, we're talking about homebrew equipment. What is your favorite piece of homebrew equipment that you've ever seen? Just somebody brought this weird looking contraption to the investigation and you just fell in love with it.
the Ghost Box, actually.
The Ghost Box.
Yeah, the Ghost Box was actually homebrewed.
By this Frank guy.
Yeah.
Another piece of homebrew equipment that was actually created more in the 40s and wasn't intended is the Tesla radio.
Yes.
This is another interesting ITC device that doesn't even require power. You just need some copper wire, a mason jar, and a few other parts. I think overall just like $20. You can hook it up to a computer, and not only can you hear EVPs, but you can hear all sorts of cool things like lightning storms that are hundreds of miles away.
I mean, the science behind the Tesla radio, I really don't understand because I haven't built it. I haven't seen it in front of me, and that's how I learn. But I'm thinking that maybe one of these days that we're going to buy the parts for it and build it ourselves, and maybe we can actually do a Nature's Darkest special on it.
Ooh.
What do you think about that?
I think they'd be cool. We hook it up to the computer, and we just have a live Tesla radio testing session. What's some other homebrew equipment that you've seen?
Well, most of the high-tech cameras now that have infrared and UV style filters, that was actually homebrewed. Most of the stuff that you see on the market was originally a form of homebrewed.
You know, that's actually that way in a lot of scientific fields. You know, you see a bunch of weird surgical-looking tools that are meant for like really specific things. A lot of surgeons back in the way yonder days used to bring in custom homebrew equipment to perform surgeries with, and they were so good and successful that they actually became standard in most surgical kits. So paranormal investigation is not the only field that uses homemade equipment.
That is true. And again, educate yourself. Go to your library and study electronics, study the paranormal, study, there are several books out there that goes by case basis on what happened on each case. Dan Holzer was a good author. There's a few other ones out there, but just do your own research. Get comfy in the library, buy some books on eBay. Again, not sponsored.
You're telling us to go to a library?
Yes.
What is this, the 1800s?
Just find any type of knowledge where you can read these case by case.
Are there any specific books you recommend?
Anything from Dan Holzer. I think I said his name.
I already said his name, but are there any other specific
Oh,
books that you like?
I'm sure that Dr. David Oster has some decent books out there.
You don't remember any
I
of
can't
their
remember the
names?
guy. I cannot remember the guy. He was the guy that originally created The Whisper, the TV show. Anyways,
I've never heard of this, do tell.
the guy was really spot on for the information that I discovered out in the field. I'll have to do some research and give some feedback on that author. But yeah, he was on. He created The Whisper, and it was basically off of his own personal experiences. But
So,
but Ghost Whisper. It's the Ghost Whisper, I think.
Ghost Whisperer or just
Ghost-
Ghost Whisper?
Ghost Whisper.
So we'll get that name to you in the next Ghosts 101. What will we talk about in the next Ghosts 101?
I don't know. Let's just leave it to be announced later. And
Leave it to the fates?
Yeah, because there's so much information that needs to be passed.
We did discuss, and I think we could talk about how to find your perfect hunt, how to scout and locate a particular investigation spot.
Any graveyard, you can go to. Well,
I mean,
the thing
I
is-
don't
is-
think you'll get very many good looks at Walmart.
No.
So we
and
can talk about this.
We'll talk about that next one because there's a lot of information.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Pertaining to it.
resources,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of do's and don'ts and whatnot.
But ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you as always. If you made it this far, please hit that like and comment. Like, hit that like button.
Subscribe
and subscribe and
share the video on
and make sure you hit that little bell for the notification so you guys can always get.
So you get a little ding on the YouTubes whenever we decide to poop all over your sub feed.
But we really do appreciate every single one of you. This is Kevin,
Oh, this is Kane.
and this has been Nature's Darkest.
Ooh.